Let's get after it. There you go.
Coach at Cal State Northridge, and after that, you move on to the University of Oklahoma. Talk more about what that transition was like.
Going to Oklahoma Northridge, and I'll take a little step back just for Northridge. Like Northridge allowed me to really grow my wings while I was there. It allowed me really to, I made mistakes. I think, any coach will tell you when they start off, they have the base knowledge and they have the book knowledge like that, but they lack experience. And they lack situational awareness and things like that. And so to sit there and have you go and go to a Northridge and allow yourself to make mistakes and to learn. That was so important. If I went to like a Power Five, it would have been disastrous, not from I think I would have been okay, but like, if I go to a Power Five, maybe the mistakes I make are fireable offenses or they don't keep me along. But Northridge really allowed me to do a lot. And so from there, I kind of knew in offense to Northridge, but it was like had all these great recruiting classes, all the success, everything else like that. And when I got a job offer from Oklahoma, they couldn't even come back and sit there and say like, hey, we'll give you an extra 15,000 or something to stay here. They didn't have the finances, to be able to do something like that. And so for me, Oklahoma was kind of the next step and the next thing that I wanted to kind of discover from a coaching standpoint to see how far I could go. And Oklahoma was interesting because they hadn't won a conference championship in 20 something years on the men's or never on the women's side. And we won two while I was there. The women finished like fourth at nationals. The men, I think, finished eighth. Two national champions while I was there. I got to work with some of, the elite coaches, Brian Butrick, who's now Mark Napier. The head coach was Martin Smith. Dana Boone, who's doing a fantastic job, is one of the great coaches out there. And so it was really cool from a standpoint of to build something again. And, I can't sit there and say we built Northridge because Northridge was pretty successful when I got there, but we definitely made it better. Same like we did at Wisconsin, and Oklahoma was the same. And we literally, I'll say this, I don't think they've won a conference championship since, I left. And so that's a testament to how hard I worked. And, I was a recruiting coordinator, and it was a lot of work because a lot of people when we got there did not want to go to Oklahoma, did not, care for Oklahoma. And now there definitely is a legacy of people wanting to go there and stuff like that. The school records and a lot of events were, pretty poor. And we really built something there. I enjoyed my time, but I'm a Southern California kid. And so it was one of those things where, about the fifth year, and I probably would have stayed longer. My goal for myself was to stay there for, 8 years or something like that, and then go, be a director of track and field myself at a D1 school. And about 4 or 5 years in, I started to see kind of the writing on the wall. I started to see kind of like they really didn't care about. So let me say this. So it's interesting in the collegiate kind of mindset, right? The one thing that, I think when you're young and you're into sports, you're just like, oh man, track this and this sports, and Division I track and field at the Power Five is all about football and basketball. Let's not be stupid. The reason the Big Ten is going to get about $100 million buyout per school is because of football and basketball, and more football more than anything. And even if you're of the bottom of the conference as far as budget and stuff like that, that's going to make you a powerhouse. Everyone sits there and says USC, UCLA, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, they were getting 20 something million from the Pac-12, and now they're about to get 100 million from the Big Ten. just from a financial standpoint and taking care of, the athletes and doing everything and competing against the best to try to be the best. It's not even it's a question of, now it's become money and everything else like that. And then having to pay their athletes and all that kind of stuff. I understand it. I understand it. And so track is an interesting standpoint because there's track coaches out there making a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. But it also has become, it's weird to me, because it's, kind of an arms race, because it makes no sense, because track loses money. I mean, I don't care what coach in the country sits there and says, well, we do this. I don't care. Like, even Arkansas, that's a beautiful school that's successful. And I think they make money off their meets and stuff like that. At the end of the day, they're not bringing in revenue. Football and basketball is bringing in revenue. And sometimes in some, cases, maybe baseball or, a school like Wisconsin, I think probably hockey makes revenue and stuff like that. But I might be mistaken. So track is a zero-sum game. I mean, it's like, really, if you were talking about collegiate athletics the way NCAA wanted it, it should just be about graduation rates, and that should be the most important thing. And I watched people around me, people who were very successful, who did a great job, get fired because they weren't successful. But yet they had the top graduation rate. They had, unbelievable students. They were busy in the community and things like that. And I mean, I want to win. I don't, just for pride, I always want to be successful for my athletes and things like that. But I started to see that within athletic departments, the way it kind of came, but yet also the athletes have so much power. I mean, it's, there are some road coaches who do crazy stuff, but for the most part, I feel like our profession has really good professional people and people who really care about athletes and so forth like that. And so the Oklahoma time was fantastic, but also was a realization of like, do I want to do this college thing? Is there another route for me? And so my dad got sick. I moved. He was in Camarillo, California, and I just moved back. I started working with some NFL, Major League Baseball guys. I had about 40, 50 kids I did private training with in Orange County. And, for about a year, that's all I did. I kind of took a step away from track and stuff. And during that time, I actually, started rededicating myself to coaching ed. I was writing coaching ed for USA Track and Field, for World Athletics, doing LA 84 Foundation, everything I could do because I'm giving back to the sport. But it was like a time for me to kind of learn more about other things. And I was fortunate to know Terry Crawford, who's one of, Chris, her, and we've known Terry for a long time. And Terry's been a great mentor to me. And so she got me the job at the center, and it was a coach. And, I thought it was a huge pay cut, but I got myself back into track. And with that, I was working with NFL, working with, Major League Baseball guys. I think I had a couple like volleyball players. And then I had a bunch of high school athletes in Orange County. And it was a lot more lucrative than working in college. I mean, it really was. And the only thing, and it was actually had more free time. It was interesting. It was, you kind of worked at specific times. It was like weekends were crazy busy and Wednesdays kind of were busy, and then a couple mornings here and there. But I noticed I had a lot more free time to really manage my growth as a coach and the knowledge I wanted. And so I took the job at the center for 2 years. I drove 200 miles daily almost, 105 miles each way. And it's not a complaint. It was just part of what I did, and I loved it. It was awesome. And I learned so much from coaching other sports and, working with other athletes. I do believe that track coaches are some of the best coaches in the world. I mean, Chris is one track coach now. He's got success. He's working with, athletes from all different things. I mean, you're talking two of the best trainers in boxing are track guys. Larry Wade's doing an amazing job, and now he's even announcing, and stuff like that. To watch Larry has just been awesome because it's like we kind of, I saw him start coaching and then start with the boxing, and we talk from time to time. And he's just doing an amazing job. But it is the basis of like when you really get into the track coach thing and you stay kind of there, you miss a lot from just overall learning and coaching and stuff like that. And then I say that at the collegiate level, and it's great. It's fantastic. The coaches do a fantastic job. They do an amazing job. They're bettering kind of the world. Interesting things have changed too. Like, I mean, now kids go to the school and they try on the uniforms, on the recruiting trips and stuff like that. And I'm old school. I'm like, no, you got to earn your way to, I don't care. Like I wouldn't probably be very successful at college because I would be like, no, you're not trying on a uniform on your recruiting trip. Sorry. Like you got to earn if you do come here, you earn your right to wear that uniform. So, I'm a little old school kind of that way. And I kind of knew that about myself. I knew that the kids, like, I was so intrinsically motivated to be an athlete and to have people on scholarship and on the team who just didn't care to be there. I just was kind of like, yeah, that's not me either. Because I'm not a rah curse, kind of thing. I talk, I educate. That's how I coach. And those are the athletes that work best with me. And I don't know if I'd be a good college coach, and so had opportunities to go back. It just wasn't it. And so from Oklahoma, I moved back to, I took a job at the training center about 2010, 11, was there. I've been here at the training center forever. I had the residence program. I mean, we had 3 medals in London, 5 in Rio, and 1 in Tokyo. And probably should have had another one, but even so, it was amazing because the alumni, the people who actually, the alumni, like Joe Kovacs and Ryan Krauser and Josh Owentunde and Darrell Hill and, on, Mason Finley and, Kara Winger. And there's just so many athletes that have been successful through the training center. And it was another one of those things where I can kind of put my thumb and sit there and say, yeah, I came there and we made it better, and I was part of making it better. And so USATF, they eliminated the residence program last year, which is hard because there's 19 distance enclaves in the United States. There's about 10 to 11 sprint enclaves. Mm-hmm. And these are, sponsored. You have corporate sponsors, they have shoe sponsors, whatever it may be. And there's not a single field event sponsored, group in the world. And, it's not a complaint. It's not one of those like, oh man, I've coached 18 Olympic and world championship medalists, which is probably better than 99% of distance coaches. But I don't sit there and complain that I'm not getting an offer to coach, a group and stuff like that. So, I make it work. I have international athletes. We created a foundation. We're really excited about it. I think we're really excited about where we're trying to go. And the creation of the foundation is for field events. And really is kind of the vision of, Chris and I, we can talk about this forever, but the sport is in a bad place. And depending on leadership to fix it is probably not the right thing. It's really not their job. That's my view. Because they have so many other things that they have to worry about. And so like enclaves, foundations, people being creative, like, Bobby creating the meet in LA and the American Track League kind of thing. And that's how we're going to get more exposure. It's just putting track and field more on TV. And, there's not very many opportunities, I'm not even talking about the way track is covered for the Olympic trials and the World Championships. 2016 long jump was probably one of the greatest, most exciting long jump competitions for the men in the history of the sport. It was literally 8:59, 8:58, 8:40, 8:43, 8:39. So basically like 28:4, 28:3. 27.9, 27.9, 27.6, 27, literally, well, 8th place was 27 feet. And literally every jump from round 2 to round 5 had someone different on the team. And it was not covered. It literally was like, oh, these are the 3 people who made the team. And it's like, how, they sit there and say, well, field events aren't, that was exciting. The whole stadium stopped and watched the competition. I mean, races were on hold because the competition was so exciting and the crowd was so into it. And so you can't tell me that field events aren't exciting. I mean, you watch Ryan Krauser throw world record trials, and it's just there's so much excitement for the whole sport of track and field. And we, it's unfortunately we showed the 100, we showed 25 laps of the 10,000, and we're wondering why viewership isn't better. Instead of showing like It's crazy. Golf, you can literally follow someone from hole 1 to hole 18, and you can have 60 golfers out there and know what everybody's doing, within 2, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So the concept's out there, and you can do that for track and field if you want, but
You're going to China. You're going to China. You said this weekend, Jim?
Yeah, I leave Sunday. We have a track meet on Sunday at the center, and then man, Chris, it's getting bad, bro. At the meets, especially a meet this late, 3 weeks before USA's, with the minimal opportunities that the athletes have. This meet would have 300 people. It's bad in the field events, but it's the sprints is catching up. Those kids who, there used to be kids who run 10 flat to 10:20.
Yeah.
And, the Joe Greiners and stuff like that, right? And they would just hold on, and potentially make a team or make a final or do whatever. They're not, those kids are stopping, they're stopping. There just is no numbers. I will say, I mean, obviously people compete at trials, but COVID, I'll give it a break. But I believe at trials next year, they will not fill fields. They will take people who have no business being there, because the kids are just not staying in the sport because there's no support and there's no, window for them to stay in it. It's terrible.
I've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
Especially after the collegiate season ends.
I mean, they were all excited because they said, I think TV. They were excited because they said that, what was it? The viewership was on the last day of NCAA's was 180,000 or something like that, or 985,000. I'm like, that's terrible. It was the 26th most watched sport. I'm like, cornhole gets more than that,
I've had these talks. It's
it's sad because USA Track and Field is supposed to boost it, but it's the production is terrible. It has not changed in 40 years. I'm like, come on, people, but whatever. It is what it is. We can talk forever about that, but
you just said I have friends that are ADs, D1 ADs, and you're right. At Division I, especially, it's football and basketball, and particularly football that brings in the money. When you're in the Big Ten, like you said, or Big 12, or SEC, that money trickles down the track. So track programs, some of these guys are getting paid and stuff. But like you said, how we're talking now, I've always said this: track and field shoots itself in the foot. Number one, I hate to say this, but I call it's a broke sport. I said that number one, the coaches, and one reason why I'm not back coaching is you spend way too much time and hours coaching and you don't get paid. You've already talked about how many. So eventually you'll do that for a while, but you're making, you got assistants making 30, 40, 50,000. Then you look across the hallway in football and the position coaches now are making, some of them are close to $1 million, and you don't have
here's a perfect example. They had a guy with zero experience who was the quarterback assistant, whisperer. I mean, literally, it was crazy. He was and his starting salary was $175K. And I'm sitting there going, I've had national championships. I voted 2 times of the year. We won 2 conference championships, and we have one in 28 years. And, I'm sitting there, busting my butt, traveling every weekend, being recruiter coordinator and everything else. And I'm fortunate to make what I make, but I'm sitting there going, dang, literally the lowest person on the totem pole makes almost 3 times, or twice what I'm making. Yeah. And their window's higher, for stuff. And so it's if you're burned out, if you're burned out, making $1 million is a lot different than if you're making 100,000.
Yeah, so you have that element to it. Like this, where none of these coaches, most of these, like you said, a couple guys are getting paid. There's a few guys making a lot of money, but it really goes down after that. And if you're not in the Power 5, like SEC or Big One, you're really not making a lot. Even if you're like USC or UCLA and you make a good deal, it's so expensive to live here.
UCLA is the most expensive school, and I'll argue that probably what the UCLA head coach probably is one of the worst salaries in the in the conference.
The other deal where we shoot ourselves in the foot, and I give Sam Seams credit. They've gotten the NCAA meet on TV. You got to condense stuff. Fans don't, fans I'll even give Major League Baseball this. You know, it used to be 4-hour games. They came to the pitch clock. You know, I've been to a bunch of Dodger games this year. I've been to games that are under, 3 hours, 2.5 hours. Fans have a limited time span. You can't be going to these track meets that start at 7 in the morning and they end at 10 o'clock at night. No one wants to see that. So you're shooting yourself in the foot, and you're only bringing in revenue if you do huge meets like that. Like you said, like you're bringing in entry fees. So you go to Seattle for University of Washington meet when Coach Metcalf was there, he'd say, it went all day and they'd make, $30,000 a meet on entries, but you're there all day. So you're only going to make money on that. And the other deal it does is, people don't know this, it's kind of like a scapegoat sport, because they get 3 for 1. If you have to have a certain amount of sports to be sponsored Division One. People don't really understand that. So if you have indoor, outdoor track, and cross country, you get 3 sports. I forget the minimal. I think sports, you have to have 6 or 7 to be D1. So track and field gives you 3 sports if you sponsor indoor, outdoor, and cross country. Yet you're only paying these coaches 1 salary. They have a year-round season. Football has an off season. Basketball has an off season. If you do cross country, if you're a distance coach, you're all year. Even if you're indoor, outdoor, you're all year. And like you said, if you got kids that go to the trials or go to Europe, and recruiting never stops. So you kill the coaches. It's not paying a lot. You're kind of using the coaches by, I got 3 sports for the cost of 1. Think about that. And the other sports, they get 3 salaries. So you have that. And then, like you said, when you get to the pro level, especially the field events, there's not a lot of development, and there's not a lot of meets for these guys who are in between. And what I mean in between is a kid who's like, 10-1 out of college, and they want to keep training, or, a guy long jumping 26 feet and he keeps training, and then they can't really make it pro because there's no sponsors or whatever.
Yeah. And it's the fact that, like, technical events, they take longer. I mean, the average medalist on the men's side is 26 and 27 on the women's side. And you see a lot of successful athletes at 28 to 30 years old. I mean, if a kid redshirts, they're 22, 23 years old. So they've got potentially 5, 6 years to make that gap. And, in the past, Nike and all the other companies did a really good job of supporting, because there's not a lot of other support. And so now they're pretty much washed away. I mean, unless you're a medalist in the field events, you're not going to get a contract. I mean, it's pretty much the standard now. And so, like, for the Wills and Brittany's and stuff who were super successful out of college, that's no problem. Like, you look at Jasmine Moore, Anna Hall, but, girls that are, jumping right around 14 meters, that could be 15 meters and medalist and develop in the next 4 to 5 years, but there's just no support for them, especially in the field events. And so it's a broken, like, we talked about, but, it's going to take people like myself and you who are passionate about this sport to really do it, and I'm not bitching, I'm not complaining, I'm just doing something about it. It's kind of like my whole life. It's, if something is broke or something's not right, I just go and try my best. I may fail. I may not, reach to the level I want, but I really, my goal is to create a training group and a foundation, and with foundation for support for the athletes, and, have coaches, and kind of set up what the training center was a while ago. And, so that field event athletes can start to develop, because we're just not seeing it. I mean, you have competitions where if you have professional athletes, in the events, you can't even fill a field. The collegians are too important, and, collegiate kids are in their thing, and I'm seeing it. I mean, I got a pretty decent size, meet this weekend, but it would be, if I have a meet with money, I might have 30 athletes coming. And now if I have a meet with money, I'm lucky to get 20, and that's a lot of international athletes coming too. So yeah, there's just not that post-collegiate support system out there. And you as a track and field, I just don't feel like it's their job. First, I don't think they know how to do it, but secondly, it's not their job to do it, and so, but as coaches, it's like, how many, hats can we truly have on? I mean, what are we going to be? We work as agents, sports psychologists, coaches, we help with travel. I mean, our jobs just expanding. But it's also too, like, Chris, if you had, 6 gold medalists, and this is how broken it is. Like, let's say you have 6 gold medalists from the 100, 200, right? Those athletes can afford to pay you, okay, right? But let's say you have 6 medalists in events that aren't popular. So, like, let's just say you're me, and now you're a field event coach, and you have 6 gold medals, long jump, and high jump. They're not going to get sponsorship to be able to coach me. I mean, to pay me, right? And then part of it is, and then the system's broken as it is, because it's like the agents get 15 to 20%, and the coaches get 0 of that. And
well,
it's crazy.
And you have no money events. You have events like the javelin, I hate to say, or you have events like the hammer. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
There's no money in those events. Post-collegiate,
even if
who's going to stick around that?
If a kid makes 100,000 and the agent's taking 15, now the kid's down to 85,000. It's like, okay, how much can they afford to pay you? Even though you're there 320 days a year and you're traveling with them and stuff like that. And so, this whole system's just broken. HSI had a great idea and concept with it, where they pay coach, athlete, and agent and all that kind of stuff. And like, the coaches, if at the post-collegiate level, need to get back together again. But you're fighting over peanuts.
That's the problem. You're fighting. There's not enough. There's too many mouths to feed and not nearly enough money.
Yeah, and it's like, even so, it's like you don't want to take the money from the kid. They can't even live at a normal kind of thing. But I digress. We could talk about this forever, and we're getting away from kind of where that is. But now currently, I'll kind of, I went to the training center, was there for like 12 years. We were super successful, proud of what we did. I was able to coach 18 world and Olympic champion, Olympic medalists, winning medal athletes while I was there. Now I'm international, work with the Chinese, the Koreans, Indian, para. Work with American para. I have only about 3 or 4 American athletes, a Guatemalan athlete too. And so I have MBA, which is my maximum velocity athletics. And through that, there's a couple of things. We're creating a foundation to obviously help with field events and trying to create a system for training, coaching, athlete support, and then eventually like hosting meets and having them on TV and having meets, because it's so Eurocentric driven sport where the athletes have to go to Europe to try to qualify for world championships. And so we're trying to get it so, at least field event wise, we have 2 to 3 major meets at the gold level here in the States, which will help for qualifying. And just, I'm trying to do it independently, not through USA Track and Field, not through USATF Foundation, which is fantastic also. Just kind of doing it ourselves and getting it up early and getting support and making like a festival out of it, where have food trucks and music, a DJ, and highlighting field events and doing it in a short window, but producing it and helping to produce it to where we tape the meet, delay it for maybe a day or whatever, and really put it together and do it right. And I think a lot of people would watch that. And it would be 2 hours, reproduced, delayed, and people, they're going to find results and stuff like that. But I think they're still going to enjoy watching the product. I don't know if it's hours. It's something that we're going to work on, and I'm really excited about it. And so, but that's kind of where I'm at now, and just and it's sad because I'm at a crossroads too from an American point, because international, I get supported well, and the Americans don't get supported. And it's the same conversation of, do I bring an athlete in who can't, even though I think they could be a potential athlete, but they can't afford to pay me. And even if they win that medal, they still can't afford to pay me. And so that's really the crossroads. And that's hopefully why we can get funding through the foundation, so that it gets taken care of. And so USA Track and Field allowed me to do that as the director of the program. And, I was able to coach anywhere from, 6 to 8 American athletes. And we'd have, we had success, and we had a lot of development through. And so, we'll see kind of where we're going. I mean, it's an exciting time. People want to support because they're excited about the LA 28 Olympics. And so a lot of people, there's kind of a buzz already starting, especially in Southern California. I've met with people from different, huge foundations, people who, do very well, and they want to help. they want to help. And so that's the kind of the exciting thing we're doing. But it's exhausting between trying to be a coach, trying to be a business owner. We're doing camps and clinics, we're hosting track meets, we're doing all that kind of stuff. And so, I became a father about 15 months ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm just
Congratulations.
enjoying being, thank you. I'm just enjoying real dad.
Yeah.
So you went to medical school, you had a chance to have a career as a doctor lined up for you, but then you ended up choosing coaching instead. Explain how you turned down the opportunity to be a doctor instead do coaching. Like, was it a tough decision?
Yeah. I mean, if you talk to me since I was like, a kid, I wanted to be a doctor because I wanted to help. I knew, like, it's funny, you ask some kids, oh, what do you want to be? And I'm like, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon, and help athletes who are hurt. And, did all the, took all the classes, went to, we don't have pre-med at Wisconsin, but we have the medical track. Did work at the Ronald McDonald House, worked as a diet tech, because one of my master's in nutrition, or the graduate degrees is in nutrition and undergrad in nutrition. And, and really thought about wanting to do that. But then it was like I was trying to train for the Olympics in 2000 in the trials and making that team. And they asked me to be a GA, and within 2 weeks I fell in love with coaching. I just was like, gosh, this is where I'm supposed to be. One of those times in my life where I'm like, I'm exactly doing what I'm supposed to do, and this is my route. It was a hard conversation with my parents because they're like, you spent all this time doing this, doing that. They're like, we didn't come from a lot. And she, so it was also like, you're giving up on your, financial dreams of, like, I always joke that I knew a doctor and he had a Range Rover. And it was like, oh man, that was like the car I wanted. I didn't want a Ferrari. I didn't want a Lamborghini. I wanted a Range Rover because that was what the doctor I knew had. And, and my parents were like, well, you're giving up on your Range Rover dream, kind of thing. And I remember telling my parents, I'm like, no, I'm still going to have a Range Rover because I'm going to be one of the most successful track coaches in the world. And lo and behold, I'm pretty fortunate, and I did buy that Range Rover, and I gave it to my fiance and my daughter. But it was I've kind of always had a belief in myself, and I think it's partly just coming from an orphanage, being adopted, being a high level athlete, all those different things. It's just the one thing, whether I was just different, I think, because the experiences, but I've always had a belief in myself that I'll find a way and work hard and be successful. And so I think from a school standpoint, it wasn't, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And the reason is because I found what I was truly passionate about. And it's crazy because my roommate, he's a cardiologist at the Mayo Clinic. One's an orthopedic surgeon who also has his PhD in biomedical engineering. One is like the head of radiology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's all, they're all in the medical field, and they all say the same thing. They're like, oh man, we're jealous. We wish we could do what you're doing, which is coaching. You picked the right choice for sure,
I'll piggyback. It's funny you said that question, Alexander and Jeremy, you're talking, because I have a friend, Jeremy, just like you. He's Black and Asian. He's from Fresno. He played football at Arizona State. He was a smart guy. He was like the Pac-12, Scholar Athlete of the Year. I think he got a degree in I know it was in engineering. I'm not sure what, but gets drafted by the NFL, plays like 6 or 7 years for the Panthers, had a neck injury. But long story short, he would always say, he was always a smart guy. They called him the professor, and he'd always say, I knew I wanted to play football and get the most out of it, but it wasn't the end of the game for me. And this guy, after football's over, went to medical school. He's that story. Now he's an orthopedic surgeon in Newport Beach, and he's the surgeon that the NFL sends the retired players to who are hurt. They only have like a couple on the West Coast, and his name's Damian Richardson. I'll try to get him on the thing, but he played at Arizona State when they went to the Rose Bowl with Jake Plummer. NFL, went to the Super Bowl, and now the guy is like, hey, I always wanted to be a doctor. And now he is a doctor. And he's like orthopedist in Newport Beach.
And it probably made his life easier making that NFL money while he was in med school. Everyone else was.
Oh, I'm sure. I think because honestly, I think when we talked, me and my wife went to his house last summer for dinner. And I think when we talked, he I think he got scholarships or grants, you know, because he was African, you know, like I think they were so, you know, like, oh, wow, very, very rarely does a successful pro athlete go back, you know, you hear about it once in a while, but you know.
And that's and Chris, to piggyback on that, and that's the truth about life, is that literally it's like, as an athlete, you're only going to be an athlete for so long.
Yep.
You're, you know, even coaching, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty blessed because you know, I was lucky because I didn't start my family till late, so I was able to kind of make those wholesale changes. I mean, to sit there at 30, gosh, what was it, 32, 33, I think it was, to just sit there and say, no, I'm not coaching anymore, a college coach, even though, you know, and be able to do that. And I, at the time, I was single, didn't have a family, so I didn't have to worry about, you know, like the next day. But yeah, I mean, it was even a crossroads at that time. I'm like, well, maybe this is the time to go back to school and go be a doctor. But I just, you know, I love coaching, and it eats at me, and it burns my passion. But yeah, I mean, go be an athlete, and then as long as you can, and if you can afford it, and then, you know, you can always go back and be, a doctor or lawyer or anything else, especially these days.
Yeah, sure. Well, you have chapters in your life. I think you just kind of said it, and like you know, you have your college youth, and then, you know, like I was college coach. Then it's like I got private, and as you get older, you get interested in more. You know, now even though I have a master's degree and a BA degree, I'm currently enrolled at Pepperdine in the MBA program because I'm a business owner. So I was like, I want to get more, you know, for business experience. I want, you know, you start learning how networking, and I want to keep growing my network, and I want some more practical business experience because this will help with my businesses and things. And
you want security for your family, and things change. Because for me, it's like I could never go back to college. And the reason I couldn't go back to college is that I worked 70-hour weeks. And like, I remember the breaks that we had were like 2 weeks during the summer and 1 week over like Christmas. And besides that, I felt like I was always doing something. And I'm like, nah, I want to take my, you know, the great thing about being my own business and kind of doing what I do is, I mean, when my daughter goes to school, I can take her to school, and I can work while she's at school, and I can literally pick her up from school. And that's when I'm done every day. And, you know, and it, you know, that there's a peace of mind to that. And, you know, it's, you stop having the Lamborghini dreams or the Range Rover dreams where you're just like, oh, I need to make $1 million and kind of stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like someone like Chris and I feel like we're so driven that the money's going to take care of itself, and just success is going to take care of itself. And so that's not my vision anymore. My vision is to help create something, and, you know, all that stuff. I've been very fortunate to do well, and it all take care of itself. And you know, how much truly do you need to have? Do you need to have a $5 million house with, you know, $1 million cars? Nah, that's not me. I'm like very comfortable in a nice house, nice cars, no debt, and we travel a lot, and, you know, and I get to spend time with my family. That's important, and still do what I enjoy. Being in med school or being a doctor, you know, unfortunately, a lot of my friends have been married a few times who are surgeons and doctors and stuff like that.
Yeah. You've been inducted in the Mount Sac Relays High School Hall of Fame. Talk more about what it was like receiving that phone call.
You know, Mount Sac was probably my favorite meet. Even though I jumped 7'4" at the Easter Relays in Santa Barbara City College, Mount Sac was just always my favorite meet. Jumped 6'10" as a sophomore, won it. Jumped 7'2" as a junior and won it, and then jumped 7'3" as a senior. And the cool thing about it back then was it was such a big meet. So you got to watch all the pro athletes, and I mean, the stands were filled on both sides. And it was cool because that's where colleges really got to see you, because the college athletes were competing with the high school athletes. And so they literally, like, college coaches would, you know, I'd go to Mount Sac, I'd get back on like that week, and I'd receive 50 letters, you know, because I jumped so well. And so it was kind of like, you know, you're showcasing your talent in front of college coaches. And that's what Mount Sac provided. And then it was just, it's the mystique. I mean, there's, you know, every region has a meet. It's Texas Relays for people in Texas. It's Penn Relays for people up in the Northeast. It's Drake Relays for people in the Midwest. And for California, especially Southern California, it's the Mount Sac Relays. And, you know, people don't always say this, but that was the first time I got to compete against international athletes, because international high
Yeah.
school kids would come in and, I'd be jumping against a kid from South Korea or a kid from China or a kid from Mexico or some other place. And it was just really cool that it just had like this different kind of feel to it. And so it was an honor because I speak for the LA 84 Foundation. I've known Doug Todd and Brian and rest in peace, Coach Kamaka, forever. And so it was just an honor for me to be inducted into that. And really, it's funny. It's like one of my only Hall of Fames, because my high school doesn't have a Hall of Fame. My Ventura County has one, but I just haven't been inducted into it yet. And collegiately, I don't think I did enough to get into the Hall of Fame for my university and stuff like that. And so you appreciate those things. That's not why you do it, but it's just appreciate to know that you made a difference. People saw what you did, and to this day, I'll always support Mount Sac. That for my post-collegiate athletes and my Olympians, it's usually our first meet of the year. And it's because of the experience. And it's like, kind of like me, it's like, the athletes go and they compete, but, the high school athletes get to see them. And I just, it's a great meet. Mount Sac is I can't say enough about it and how it's run and the tradition of it.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's the show. Arcadia is a huge meet, and they say it's the biggest high school meet in the country. But I tell people, for recruits, if you're an athlete, the college coaches are at Mount Sac. They really can't get to Arcadia. You get a few that go, but they're in season. But at Mount Sac, you've got over 100 different universities from across the country, and they're there, and their athletes are competing, so their coaches get to watch you. Mount Sac is such an unbelievable opportunity. And coaches can walk around and talk to other coaches, and you could bump and say hi to athletes. But it's and the high school meet is at least back then it blended in with the collegiate and the pro meet. So you would have like a invitational professional 100 meters or a collegiate 100 meters, or it might be a high school first. So
and the weather is always great. The one thing I always had against Arcadia is the fact that, they want to showcase it at night, but Southern California in April, by the time you jump, it's 60 degrees.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, especially in high school, Arcadia was a big meet, but it wasn't as big because the high jump apron was like 3 steps and we were in the grass and all that kind of stuff. And it was like 7 o'clock at night and it was cold. And, I even though like I respect it, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to disrespect because it's a big deal to win Arcadia. I knew that performance-wise, I wasn't going to jump as high because it just wasn't the, best setting. But and amazing athletes have gone through there. But Mount Sac was like in the middle of the day. It's like if I could go back, I was joking. I was like, I'd love to jump in the day section at Arcadia. I really could have done something.
It was always funny because that was the greatest meet. But the one event, even the coach always knew was it was like the high jumpers were stepchilds there because every other event was home and national records, but routinely you see the high jump one there in 6'10", which isn't bad, but to meet like that, you'd expect 7'3". But it's like you said, there was 2 things. I think you guys had to jump into the lights, and then the apron was small.
Yeah, the apron was small. And Arcadia,
at least back then.
Yeah, and even back then, like at Arcadia was a big deal. My senior year, I didn't even know this. Sports Illustrated did this huge 2-page article on me, and they recorded it at Arcadia. So they like came and did this whole photo shoot, all this stuff before the competition. So it was huge. I mean, it was funny. Shelley Smith was the one who wrote the story. Who's become like this huge, big ESPN person. But like in my senior in high school, I get a 2-page article, not facing the crowd, like a real article about it. And it was really good. It was done at Arcadia. So there was the pressure of that too. And then that was the first time I met Mike Powell, and I knew who Mike Powell was, and he's watching. And it was a kind of a surreal thing because it was like Sports Illustrated is taking all these photos while I'm warming up, and I wasn't a limelight guy. I'm still not, and it's just embarrassing that they're taking these photos, doing all this, and Mike Powell's, in there and stuff. And I was like, this is crazy. And so it was a great experience. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, I think I jumped 7 feet and missed 7.2, but I was like, I knew I was ready to jump high, and I wish like I could have went to like it was just I wish that they had the high jump apron they had now, and it was done during the day, it would have been really awesome. But and that's no disrespect. Okay, I had a great experience there, but it was Mount Sac is just, man, it's the, to me, it'll always be my number one high school meet for sure.
Yeah, I did Mount Sac also for cross country when I was in high school. I really loved going there. You get to meet so many different high school kids
Yeah.
and college kids, and even there's
Mhm.
college coaches there, recruiters, and just definitely just running around the track there or the field there. It's really nice scenery and a really nice event to really bring a lot of people together for sure.
And you get to eat when you're done, you know.
Yeah, back then people they had in and out.
Yeah, exactly. We did in and out every meet.
That was the thing. Like if I jumped high, my coach was like, "You could have a 4x4," and I'm like, "Yes."
Yes, I mean, people went to Mount Sac to get in and out. It was like
Sure.
hockey to track me, but I'll get in and out.
And their shirts were awesome. Like,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like, almost like one of those like
Yeah.
Where's Waldo shirts.
Yes.
And I think gosh, I don't have them anymore, but I remember every year I went there, I got a shirt, and I would sit there and look at it for like 30 minutes, just like looking at the different things that they put on it, you know. And it was kind of funny, but it was awesome to get your Mount Sac t-shirt, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think anybody who goes there definitely has fond memories of that experience. So final thoughts as we're closing down and winding down this podcast. You have your medical school background. Any advice for young kids out there on how to take care of their bodies?
Yeah, I think, gosh, you know, it's so interesting now. You know, I sit there and the debate back and forth is whether they should be early specialization. And I'm not going to sit there and, you know, I train young athletes. Like, you know, I train high school age athletes and have had very successful high school age athletes. But the main thing that, you know, we really focus in on is not being so linear and just track based.
Mhm.
We'll go out there and we'll just be creative with some of the stuff. We'll do some, you know, stop and go stuff. And then like my track athletes are going like, okay, you know, why are we going, you know, multi-directional, even though I'm running in a straight line. Um, you know, we'll do mix in stuff. We don't do heavy weights. We do pretty, you know, manageable kind of weights and stuff like that, but for high school athletes. And so I think the biggest thing is that it has changed. There were, you know, we talked about this earlier. There really wasn't coaches out there that like were training people. That wasn't a big thing back when I was a kid, and so now there's a lot. And so it's like, do your homework, make sure that the coach is multifaceted, that they're trained. They're not just sitting there saying, okay, I'm doing it this because this is kind of how I did it and stuff like that. Or they give themselves a fancy, and no disrespect, but they make themselves the acceleration doctor or the agility doctor or whatever it is, you know, and it's like, okay, well, what are your credentials, you know, because training an NFL guy is way different than training a kid who's like, you know, 13, 14. Because in the NFL, they're pretty well developed as athletes. They just need, you know, a little bit of guidance. Where I think at 13, they're a clay mold, and it's like there's so much more that you need to teach them and for them to learn and stuff like that. So for the young kids, I would be careful who you you know, find to train and stuff. Try to stay in as many sports as possible. But if you are going to train, make sure it's a multifaceted training with, you know, with therapy, with, you know, make sure you eat right, sleep right, do prehab, regeneration stuff, and then obviously still doing that grunt work and being able to, you know, really put, because at that age, like if I'm sitting there giving all this fancy jargon and giving you all this scientific training, you know, a kid at 13 years old, like you can't distinguish between that much between a lactate training, I'm sorry, power, speed, and, you know, speed, power development and stuff like that. I mean, there's just, they don't have the muscle tone. They don't have some of the other stuff to develop, but they can learn coordination. And they can learn, you know, working the different planes of their body, and just, you know, staying as healthy as possible. And if a young athlete can do that, then I think that they're going to be really successful. And you're seeing it. I mean, these kids, I don't believe it's the track. I don't believe it's all the shoes. I also believe that there's really good coaches out there who are educating themselves. And that's why these young kids are just putting up astronomical marks and stuff like that. You know, running 10.8, a female running 10.8, 100, and, you know, guys throwing ridiculous things and just things that weren't good 20 years ago or were amazing 20 years ago are just good now. And I think that has a lot to do with the coaching, especially, and things like that. So that's it's long-winded, but my main thing is be athletic, do as many sports as you can. Try not to be single sport, and just really working on trying to be like the best 100-meter. Be good at dribbling a basketball, dribbling a soccer ball, have fun with it, enjoy it, and then all that stuff will take care of itself for sure.
Well, Jeremy Fischer, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed hearing your story and you talking about your journey and your coaching experience. It's been really good hearing you talk about your different advice and guidance for the young kids out there. So, Jeremy Fischer, thanks for coming on the show.
Guys, thanks for having me on, Chris. Good to chat again, and I look forward to seeing you guys down the road.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'll reach out to you maybe in a week or so when you get back.
For sure.
Good luck on your trip.
Hey, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.